should have a picnic downstairs, but that's not a picnic. And we're tough people. We can handle the little drizzle while we're under a shelter. Is that right? Am I right on this? Yeah, I thought so. Roger's saying, I don't know, I might melt, as sweet as I am, but I don't believe it. Not one bit. I've listened to his wife talk, so I'm good to go. All right, ma'am? She ain't going to admit to anything. She's going to giggle. Good morning. Today's sermon is, What's Your Epicenter? We're going to be looking at the third sermon in the life of Joseph. And we have one more after that, but next week Roger will be delivering the message while I'm taking a slight needed vacation or break to rejuvenate. So today, what is your epicenter? We're going to be opening up our Bibles to Genesis 41, but before we do that, let me tell you a little story I heard. I liked it. It was a good one. A lady, a wife, had a really great dream. The dream was that her husband was going to buy her a diamond necklace. And it felt so real that she was sure God was telling her something. So she woke up that morning, and before her husband could rouse himself out of bed, she was nudging him, telling him her dream. Well, she served him breakfast, and they ate, and she was retelling the dream again. Well, she kept retelling him this dream until he would get the idea that, hey, you're supposed to go buy me a diamond necklace. God has told me this. So he gets up and says, honey, I'll be back in a little bit. He goes out. He comes back later with this beautifully wrapped oblong box, ribbon on it and everything. Well, her excitement was so much that she grabbed the present out of his hand before he can even say, here, honey, this is yours, and started ripping open the box. She opens up the box to find a little book inside titled, How to Interpret Your Dreams. In the ancient world, dreams were signs of omens or messages from gods. That's how they looked at every dream they had. If they woke up with a dream that they could remember, then it must have been from a god. And this was an omen or a sign to them. So every person who lived in the ancient world thought this would happen and thought, oh, I had a dream. The wildest dreams you can imagine, if you can imagine waking up with them, they would have thought there was something to be said about them. It wasn't just your brain going through your day and trying to put it all together in an orderly fashion as we sometimes think they are now. So when we look at dreams, God would talk to people through dreams. We know this. And the people who would answer those dreams and foretell what these dreams meant were called prophets. Joseph is a prophet. Because a prophet's duty was to either tell a dream and its meaning or hear a dream and tell of its godly meaning. That's what a prophet was. A messenger through dreams. Joseph is just that. At the age of 17, he gave prophetic messages to his brothers and his dad, saying, hey, y'all are going to bow down to me. Just accept the fact. It's going to happen one day. And then, for another 13 years of his life, he's going to live in Egypt and several times tell people their dreams. A baker and a cupbearer. Now, Joseph is in prison still. Joseph, who has told a cupbearer and a baker the meanings of their dreams, relying on God and saying, this is what God is telling me, has told them. They've received their messages. 2 years later, Joseph's still in prison. And we start in Genesis 41, where Joseph is going to get a chance to shine. But we're going to look at Joseph's epicenter. After 2 whole years, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile. And behold, there came out of the Nile 7 cows. Attractive. I don't know how you make a cow attractive, but to him they were attractive and plump. And they fed in the reed grass. And behold, 7 other cows, ugly and thin, came up out of the Nile after the 7 attractive plump cows. And Pharaoh awoke because the ugly thin cows ate up the 7 attractive plump cows. That would startle me too. If I was Pharaoh and I really believed the dreams I could remember had true meanings, then I would see these yummy plump cows coming out of the Nile, which the Nile to the Egyptians meant life. The Nile was the source of all life to them. They didn't know there was a God. They didn't acknowledge him. They acknowledged the God that created the Nile, created all life from him, and all life came from the Nile. And the gods of the cow, he also was a God of life. So when Pharaoh sees the God of life bringing out another God of life, this is great. And then some ugly zombie-looking cows come out of there, and they eat what is supposed to be pure and holy and destroy it, but yet don't look any different. He wakes up in a sweat. He's concerned. What does this omen mean? But then sleep takes over. It says in verse 5, he fell asleep and dreamed a second time. And behold, 7 ears of grain, plump and good, were growing on one stalk. And behold, after them sprouted 7 ears thin and blighted by the east wind. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 plump, full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. You ever have one of those dreams that you don't realize you're dreaming? You think it's real? I had one once when I was a kid. That my bedroom had ice cream cones that my parents brought to me on my dresser. And I had a long dresser about like this, and it was full of ice cream cones. And then I dreamed that I got out of the bunk bed, and I was eating them. And for every one I'd ate, bang, my parents brought another one in. I was like, what is the best time ever? Like, why is my little brother sleeping in the bottom bunk when this is going on? Well, I don't care. I'm eating my ice cream cones. And then I woke up. I went to reach for another ice cream cone, and they weren't there. I'm like, no, they were real. And that's Pharaoh. Pharaoh was thinking, here are these grains. I'm walking amongst this field. And I've never seen wheat or barley, which would have been grown back then, grow more than one head on a stalk. But he sees 7. And he's thinking, man, as Pharaoh, I'm doing wonderful. Look at my crop. Look at my wealth. Then a blight comes through with some other stalks, and they just absorb them, eat them. And he's thinking, oh my gosh, what is all this? And then he wakes up. And he realizes, whew, that was just a dream. I've had 2 bad dreams. This cannot be good. So in the morning, his spirit was troubled. And he sent and called for the magicians of Egypt and all of its wise men. So what he does is he calls his council. He calls the priests that serve all the deities that they worship. And he says, guys, we've got to have a meeting real quick. I need some answers. Someone in this group that I count on has got to have some answers. Pharaoh told him his dreams, but there was none who could interpret them to Pharaoh. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, I remember my offense today. When Pharaoh was angry with his servants and put me and the chief baker in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, we dreamed the same night, he and I, each having a dream with his own interpretation. A young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. When we told him, he interpreted our dreams to us, given an interpretation to each man according to his dream. And as he interpreted it to us, so it came about. I was restored to office, and the baker, you hung him. Then in verse 14, Pharaoh sent and called Joseph. And they quickly brought him out of the pit. And when he had shaved himself and changed his clothes, he came in before Pharaoh. So here's my vision of what's going on in this courtroom. Pharaoh's asking the priest. The priest said, we got to go talk to our gods real quick. We'll be back in an hour. He looks at all of his wise men, his family, his generals, all those he counts on to run the city as a normal. Says, come here, guys. What is it? Well, let's all get together over here and we'll huddle and talk and we'll come back with a message. Well, the priests all come back after doing their little worships and get answers from their gods. They couldn't come up with an answer. The wise men, his generals and his family, and those that he counted as counsel, came to him and go, we got nothing either. And then here's the cupbearer. He's standing by the throne and goes, should have had a V8. Pharaoh, damn. Dude, I got to admit, I did something wrong here. I left a friend in prison. I was supposed to talk to you about him. His name's Joseph. And like he answered these dreams we had, scary dreams. He answered them truthfully. And it came about the next day. So, I'm just saying this. There's a guy in your prison right now named Joseph. I'd go get him. What's Pharaoh do? Go get me Joseph. I want Joseph here and now. Well, Joseph can't just approach Pharaoh because Joseph's in prison. Joseph's dressed like a prisoner. He smells like a prisoner. Even to his best abilities to maintain a good prison, there's still going to be some stench. And no one comes to Pharaoh looking anything but at their very, very best. So here's Joseph. He's sweeping, he's cleaning, he's talking, and in comes two servants of Pharaoh to the head jailer. And then the head jailer looks at Joseph, waves him over here. Joseph comes over. These two gentlemen, you need you to go with them. Joseph's like, aren't these like Pharaoh's servants? Yes, they are. You're being summoned to Pharaoh's court. 2 years later, God? No, he doesn't do that. He's like, oh. They take him to the bathhouse. They shave the 2-year stubble off his face. They clean him up with no beard, no mustache, no nothing. Got to have a clean face before Pharaoh. They cut his hair, because it's got to be a certain length. They put on nice, clean linens on him. They bathe him with some perfume so he smells good, so he does not offend Pharaoh. Then he comes into Pharaoh's courtroom and bows one knee to the ground and does this pose. The whole time, head down, knee down, bowing before Pharaoh, because he's told by these servants, this is the etiquette that you will do in front of Pharaoh. Verse 15. We're going to read that Pharaoh is going to question him. But what does this look like in modern times to us? What's going on here? I'm going to look at that for just a second before we move on to our scripture. How many of you have ever seen the show The Apprentice? The TV series? Anyone ever seen that? I don't watch it because it's just like, I don't know. But it's backstabbing from what I see. It's you're trying to get the lead on a boss. You're trying to be the boss's right-hand man with a bunch of other men around you. And here's Joseph. He has that opportunity to show himself, to shine above everyone else in that room and show, hey, here's who I am. Let me prove to you, Pharaoh, who I am and why I deserve to be in your courts. Because if you remember, he asked the cupbearer, mention me before Pharaoh when you have good standing with him again. And that cupbearer, he's a forgetful guy, but he does remember. And here's Joseph, kneeling, with the opportunity to just shine and prove that he deserves Pharaoh's attention. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have had a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it. I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. Again, Joseph could shine, but Joseph says this. Joseph answered Pharaoh, it is not me. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer. What? What is Joseph doing? He could say, yep, I got this, dude. I can do this for you. But instead, his epicenter is God. And he says, it's not in me to do this. This is not my personal gift. God has blessed me with the gift to tell you dreams and tell you what they mean with a true answer. Not a favorable, like, oh, I'm going to give you great news. But a true answer. One that is righteously true and will not waver. Now you're thinking, wait a minute. Why would Joseph say that? And wouldn't Pharaoh look at that and go, well, if you've got to consult your God, then you're not as wise as I thought. But that's not it. This is exactly what Pharaoh needed to hear the first time. Because Pharaoh would have looked at Joseph and said, really? You think you're all that? If you don't ask your God, then you're not really what I'm looking for. Because I really want a God's answer. Because it was a God that gave me this dream. So he understood that Joseph would have said just that. But the difference between Joseph and the priest and the wise men is that Joseph gives a direct answer right away. He don't need to go talk to anyone else. Because Joseph has godly integrity. And that's what separates him from the rest of the people. His integrity is righteously God-given. He understands that God is with him right then and right now, and whatever he does, God is ordaining and God is going to do for him. He don't need to go find God. God is always with him. That's how God is with us. So when we do things, when we say things, we better make sure, keep ourselves in check, that we have the knowledge God is right there hearing it right then. He's not somewhere else and we got to go apologize later. Or we can hide the fact from him. Our integrity should be godly integrity because we know God is with us right then. And he's always with us. Verse 17. Then Pharaoh begins to tell the dream. Behold, in my dream, I was standing on the banks of the Nile. 7 cows, plump and attractive, came out of the Nile and fed on the reed grass. 7 other cows came up after them, poor and very ugly and thin, such as I had never seen in all the land of Egypt. And the thin, ugly cows ate up the first 7 plump cows. But when they had eaten them, no one would have known that they had eaten them, for they were still as ugly as at the beginning. And then I awoke. I'm not done though, Joseph. And also saw in my dream 7 ears growing on one stalk, full and good. 7 ears withered thin and blighted by the east wind sprouted up after them. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 good ears. And I told it to the magicians, but there was no one who could explain it to me. And I'm sure he gave that little scanting eye at everyone going, look guys, y'all aren't worth my time anymore if you can't do these simple things. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dreams of Pharaoh are one. See, he doesn't get up and go anywhere. He's bent knee down, head down. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dreams are one. The second time, Joseph puts God first. Do you see this? God is first. When Joseph says the dreams are of one, God is telling me this. He doesn't say, all right, you know what, I'm up here, now look at me, Pharaoh, look at me. Here I am. He understands that he's second to God. His integrity tells him this. His epicenter says, I am second to God. When you understand an earthquake happens at the mantle. And it goes straight up, and it sends a line up to the crust, and from there it moves out. God is this, and God is this line going up to the mantle. And where Joseph stands, that's where God is. And Joseph knows this. And everything Joseph does is because of God coming up to him, per se, as an earthquake would, and moving out from him. Everything Joseph does ripples out God. Everything he says ripples out God. He never ripples out himself. He never says this is because of me. It's all because of God. I'm only here because of God. God is doing all this. God is revealing the dreams. God is moving through me. My epicenter relies on God. He says, the 7 lean and ugly cows that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears, blighted by the east wind, are also 7 years of famine. It is as I told Pharaoh. God, again, God has shown to Pharaoh what he's about to do. There will come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. But after them there will arise 7 years of famine, and all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. The famine will consume the land, and the plenty will be unknown in the land by reason of the famine that will follow. For it will be very severe. And doubling of Pharaoh's dreams means that this thing is fixed by God, and God will shortly bring it about. Joseph tells Pharaoh, look, you can go sacrifice all you want to my God. You can go pray all you want to my God, but my God has deemed this is going to happen. We cannot change his mind. You, Pharaoh, who think you're all powerful, will not change God's mind. You can't do it. This is a fixed event, and God has ordained it, and it is going to happen. Now you have a choice. You can listen, or you can ignore it. Now when it says it was going to happen over the land of Egypt, that's because Egypt owned everything at that time. There wasn't a city or a country that Egypt did not physically own and have a presence in. So this was going to be widespread beyond just Pharaoh's normal control of things. This is going to reach beyond and out. And then Joseph makes a proclamation. Joseph says, look, you can do something about this. And this is how you can do it. My God is talking to me right now. He says in verse 33, now therefore let Pharaoh select a discerning and wise man and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh proceed to appoint overseers over the land and take 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 plenty years, and let them gather all the food of these good years that are coming and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh for food in the cities, and let them keep it. That food should be reserved for the land against the 7 years of famine that are to occur in the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish through the famine. Joseph holds to his integrity. It's very subtle. It's very light. But when you look what Joseph's doing, he's still knee down, head down. He could have said, here I am now. I have told you your dreams. I've told you the meanings, and I guarantee you they're going to happen. Now look at me and give me my reward. But is he standing? No. Is he proclaiming himself? No. He said, Pharaoh, you should appoint someone. He's trusting in God because of his righteousness and understanding of God. He's saying, God, I'm going to give this wisdom out that you've given me, and I'm going to let you move through Pharaoh instead of me making myself first. I'm still putting you first. I'm still second. Because I can proclaim myself right now. I can say, I need the position. Here's what you need to do. You need to make me in charge of all this because I know how to deal with this situation. But he doesn't. He's staying humble. He's allowing God to move as God will. Whether that moves him back into the prison or not, he don't know. But he's not concerned about that. He's concerned that God be seen and that God's will be done. That's what he's concerned about. And when his concern is felt and seen, Pharaoh moves because he hears the wisdom and he sees who God is here. He sees that this is a man of God, and he says, this proposal pleased Pharaoh and all of his servants. He looked at his wise men, or his priests and his wise men. He looked at his family who was around him, and it's like, we know his thing. You like that? And they're all, that's my wisdom. They're probably all thinking one of them are going to be chosen. And Pharaoh said to his servants, can we find a man like this in whom is the Spirit of God? Because you priests had to go talk to yours. You guys over here didn't even ask about priests. You just kind of mixed together and talked about things. This guy is directly connected with his God. Can we find anyone like him? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has shown you all of this, there is none so discerning and wise as you are. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Only as regards to the throne will I be greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, see, I have set you over all the land of Egypt. So here's what he does. He makes a proclamation. Then he walks down to Joseph. And he touches Joseph's shoulder, I believe. And he says, see, stand up, stand up. Look, all this is yours. All this is yours. I'm giving you everything. You're no longer a servant. You stand up and be proud. You stand up and show I'm worthy of giving you what I'm giving you. Make me look good. Stand up. Don't kneel. Come stand up here beside me. You are my right hand now. And then he does something even more amazing, which probably set the rest of them off a little. Then Pharaoh took off his signet ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand. That meant, Joseph, when I die, you're the next Pharaoh. There you go. You have second power. His own children over there would have probably been gnashing their teeth a little bit. The priests over here were like, well, we had planned someone else. But Pharaoh dictates Joseph to be the next Pharaoh when Pharaoh dies. Then he clothed him in garments of fine linen. Forget that casual look. I want you looking pretty wealthy. I want you in some really nice clothes. Then he puts on a gold chain about his neck, it says, in 42. And on that gold chain will be an emblem, saying in hieroglyphs, I am second in command. That's who I am. So wherever Joseph goes, they'll see that emblem and they'll say, oh, this is Joseph. He's second in command. We have to do what he says. And he made him ride in his second chariot. And they called out before him, bow the knee. Thus he set him over all the land of Egypt. Picture this. Pharaoh walks out of his courtroom and says, come on, Joseph, we're going for a ride. I've got your own chariot. It's right behind mine. It's going to be gold inlaid with silver and some bronze. And you don't have to drive, though. I've got you a chauffeur. Now, trumpeters, you're going to lead the way through the city. My messengers, you're going to call in a loud voice and tell everyone to bow their knee as we ride through. Now, the people will bow a knee but look up and see Pharaoh, and then they'll see Joseph, and they'll know exactly what that meant. Second behind him, second to come up to the throne. They knew. Now, everyone in the main city knew Joseph was in charge, and there would not be a doubt. And the word would spread quickly that Pharaoh has found a second in command now, a second to him, and it wasn't one of his children. It wasn't one of his high generals. It wasn't one of the priests. The word would definitely spread. Then he brings back Joseph to the throne room. Says, moreover, Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without your consent, no one shall lift a hand or a foot in all the land of Egypt. That would look like this. You're given complete power over a country. And no one puts a business in place. No one builds a house. No one plants a garden. No one plans anything without first coming to you and asking you for permission. You run that country. There's a lot of power. There's a lot of prestige. There's a lot of ability to lose your integrity. Because briberies will definitely come your way. But when you know that's not right to be put there, and you hold to your godly integrity, you're going to look at that bribe and say, no, I don't accept that. This is what needs to happen. I understand you have a problem with that because you want to make money, but this is what needs to happen. And this is what's going to happen because this is what God wants. Joseph is going to be given the opportunity to lose his integrity. But as we know, Joseph does not lose his integrity. And it's because God trained him. God put him through tests to get here. What do I mean by that? Well, when he was 17, didn't he receive a robe saying he was going to be the authority of the house? Didn't he walk with that integrity and keep an eye on his brothers to keep them in line? Yes, he did. Some would think he was being smart aleck, but no, he was trying to do what was right against brothers who didn't care what was right or wrong. Then when he works in Potiphar's house, he didn't have to do what was needed. He didn't have to do everything right. He could have fudged things around. He could have went with the rest of the servants being a little lazy, but he wasn't. He was a strong worker. He had great work ethics. He had great financial ethics. He understood that this wasn't his, this was Potiphar's. And if it was Potiphar's, it might as well have been God's, and he was going to live with that and do what was required of him, and if he was serving God himself. And then when that backfires against Potiphar's wife, he goes to jail. But we still see that ethic. We still see that integrity hold out, and he becomes the second guy in the jail. And all this time, God is using Joseph and teaching Joseph. I don't want you to be a sheep herder all your life. I don't want that for you. I have something better for you. So I'm going to take you away from your family because it's needing to happen. You've learned your lesson about how to manage. Now I'm going to move you on to greater things. I'm going to teach you how to work as a servant and learn the culture of Egypt because I need you to understand that. And I can't just throw you right there at the beginning with Pharaoh because you would falter and flop. But you're going to succeed as a servant and work up and understand their culture and grow with their culture and understand how to talk to these people and work with these people. Now you've learned that. Now I'm going to move you over here with this next test. I'm going to put you in prison for a few years to teach you a little humility and to teach you to respect those that no one else cares about. Love those that no one cares about. Because you're going to need to do this from the good years through the 7 years of famine. There's going to be a lot of people pushed away. But Joseph, you're going to learn to look at those people and say, no, they get their share too. They deserve every much a bit as you do. So that's why Joseph was put through all these little tests, to test his integrity, to see if he can hold up to the task that's coming. And God said, you've done it. Now here's your reward. Here's what you've earned. Let's remind ourselves. The point of our existence, the reason why we meet at church, the reason why we accepted Jesus as our Lord and Savior, the reason why we love God is because He exists and we serve Him. We are second to Him. We are never first before God through anything we do. For example, we live for God. God doesn't live for us. We're the created thing. He created us. So everything we live to do, we do for Him. Also, we love for God. We're to love people and acknowledge that they were created by God the same as we were. And that God loves them exactly as much as He loves us. And He's forgiven their sins as equally as He's forgiven us. And so we're to love for Him. We're to meet for Him. We do it every week. We meet to worship him, to give honor and praise to him. We meet to fellowship. We meet to teach. We work for God. So everything you do, every breath and every bat of the eye you do should be for God. And it should be done with integrity of God. Like Joseph. God should be our epicenter. So what is your epicenter? Is it your job? Is it your friends? Is it your wealth? Is it just because of who you are? Or is it truly about God? Have you truly made God your epicenter? Because if you have, here's what it's going to look like. You're going to get a great reward. It's greater than anything Joseph ever got. Joseph got great wealth. He's going to get a family given to him from a prominent priest. He's going to have the best of everything. But God says, my children, that's nothing. That's dirt compared to what they're going to get when they come to heaven and hang with me for an eternity. I'm going to wrap them up and love on them like they've never been loved before. I'm going to treat them as they should have been treated on this planet, but never were. That's what I'm going to do for them. Once we believe that, once we show our integrity is that, and that is our goal, then what difference does it make in dealing with worldly problems? It makes a great difference. Because you see, you're not going to look at a catastrophe and say, oh, that's terrible, that's horrible, there's no hope for us. No. You're going to look at that and say, well, that's God. I know that's God. For some reason, he wanted that to happen. I won't know the picture. I won't see it down the road probably. But God is in control of that situation, no matter how horrible it is. God allowed that for a purpose. And I've got to trust that God's got a hand on that. And I know he does. So now I'm not going to stress over it like the rest of the world will. I'm not going to crumble like the rest of the world will. I'm not going to think, oh, the world is ending and it's horrible. No. If the world ends, I'm going to say, that's awesome because God is coming back and I get my reward now. I don't have to wait till I die. That's the difference between those who have an epicenter other than God as their epicenter. Those who do not have integrity with God, they think of it as, oh my, this is terrible. But we look at it and say, well, that is a sad event. That is sad. But there's glory in it because God will shine through. God is in control. And I don't need to stress over it. I don't need to start worrying, biting my fingernails over it. I don't need to turn off the news and go, oh, the world's ending and lock up my doors. Because God, I know, is in control. Secondly, what a difference it'll make with people. What a difference it'll make dealing with people. You're going to look at people in a whole different light when you start realizing God is my epicenter. Look at yourself. What have you done to God? What have you done in your life that would say, nope, you don't deserve heaven? Nope, you are such a terrible person. Because I believe every one of us has a story like that. Every one of us in here could say, yeah, Ron, I did this. If I break my life down, oh my, 10 to 1 were bad, one thing good for God. Most of my life. Yet God took those 10 and threw them away. Said it don't matter. I'm looking at all the good you do for me. When you slip and slide and you ask for forgiveness, I'm throwing that all away. I still look at the good. So when we look at other people and say, man, that person's a druggie. No, sorry. You deserve what you're getting. We don't have God as our epicenter. When we look at someone who's homeless, we don't have God as our center. If we say, sorry about your luck, dude, you probably deserved it. We have to look at them and say, that's a child of God. That's someone who's suffering and going through some tests. Can I help them out? What can I do verbally? What can I do prayerfully? What might I do financially if it's possible to help that person out? When dealing with people, our look will change and it will look better for us. We don't look at the scourge. We look at the possibilities. That is having an epicenter with God. That is having godly integrity. We're going to close in prayer now and invite our praise team to come back up.